I believe we can just book it as a common theme narrative storyline in the Big Ten each and every week. Big games and big results as we look back at week 5, look ahead to week 6 in possibly the best conference in college football. Appreciate you stopping by here at the voice of college football. It's Tuesday at 6 Eastern, 5 Central. I guess we got to include the West Coast now with the expanded Big Ten. So 2 p.m. No, that would be 3 p.m. Eastern out there on the West Coast for you Big Ten football fans that we tend to forget about from time to time, but you're making your mark. So we will invite you as well. Join the chat, leave your comments and questions. We're going to drop the link for the call-in variety as well. Corey Bratter right next to me. Get your Iowa take from Corey from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Corey, how are you?
I'm doing good. It was a fun week of Big Ten football. Obviously not fun for Hawkeye fans. We talked about that last hour, but what a game late slot on NBC between the two juggernauts this week, Penn State and Oregon. I know Ohio State was tested. We had the matchup of two really bad teams. We found out who was worse between Northwestern and UCLA. So there was that. The slate this week is, you alluded to it last hour. It's sort of weird because it almost feels like there's too many weeks where you have several really good matchups, and then the next week you have no good matchups, right? Like, in a sense, I'm not saying there's no good matchups, but there's no marquee matchups this week. And yeah, Michigan and Wisconsin traditionally is a pretty good matchup. Michigan State, Nebraska, Minnesota, Ohio State. Maybe Minnesota can do something, but that's in the shoe. So I don't feel real good about Minnesota's chances. I know they narrowly beat Rutgers this past week. I still don't know I don't know what to think about Minnesota at this point. But and then why is Northwestern playing Louisiana Monroe this late in the year? And can we break that down? I think Louisiana Monroe has a chance to win that game. That's a Louisiana Monroe team that lost by 73 to Bama, but they've also beaten UTEP and Arkansas State, who almost beat Iowa State. So let's play the transitive property here. What's the line? Can we have that on our 12 pack? Can we have Louisiana Monroe, Northwestern? That's a line, Mark.
What do you think the line is? I'm looking at it right now.
What is that's in Evanston? Well, I see it. It's 11.5. Man, that's a hard one. That's a hard one, Mark. If it was 20, I'd take Louisiana Monroe. No problem. But 11.5 at home against Monroe. Think about how bad that says Northwestern is.
Yeah, it does. It says just that. Ohio State's a 23.5 point favorite against Minnesota.
I think I would take Northwestern against that number. Or excuse me, I would take Monroe against that number.
Yeah,
against 11.5.
I would stay far, far away. But to your point, there are just no, like, I think if I could only see one game, I think Michigan State, Nebraska is going to be the most competitive game.
Yeah, that could be a fun game too, just by how those teams play.
Yeah.
The athletes that are at quarterback. Hey, we saw Michigan State a couple weeks ago. They put some pressure on that USC defense out in LA. So that's a team that can score points. Aiden Childs is a little bit erratic at times, but he's a great athlete. And Illinois at Purdue, that could be an interesting game. We saw USC struggle for a while in West Lafayette here a few weeks ago. Illinois is coming off of they've had two very emotional weeks for very different reasons. So, Ohio State's on bye. Ohio State's on bye. Iowa's on bye. Who are we missing on bye? Indiana's on bye.
Rutgers,
and
a lot of teams. Because
Oregon.
6 Big Ten games, so that's only 12. So we've got 6.
Yeah, Oregon, USC. Yeah,
Washington.
No, Washington's playing. They play at Maryland.
You mentioned Northwestern defeating UCLA, right?
That was the least of two evils. Yep.
This may say something about me, and I don't know what it is, but late Saturday night when everything was wrapped up, and I thought I want to catch some highlights, some 12 to 15 minute breakdowns of some of these games. I went to Iowa, Indiana first. The second one I chose, not Alabama, Georgia, which I didn't really see that game, and some other big games across the nation. I chose the Northwestern UCLA game. I just wanted to see it.
Did it look like bad football?
Yeah, it looked like it did. Just in the highlights package, it looked like bad football. I do enjoy that setting at Northwestern
Oh, it's a cool place to play football. Absolutely.
with the no stands on one side and they're right on the lake, and
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
looks like they're playing it. It looks like a high school game or
Right.
like a bowl game.
Yeah. It's kind of like
Setting.
playing basketball at the rack out in
Yeah.
Piscataway. It feels like a high school game. And what was I going to mention? There was something else that I guess we didn't really. I didn't really get your take. I know you watched the condensed version of Indiana and Iowa. I believe there's 4 Big Ten teams still undefeated. Am I correct in saying that? Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and who's the other
Maryland.
team? Maryland. And Maryland has got a game this weekend. Talk about going over time zones. You go from the West Coast to the East Coast. They may as well go by way of Russia, because that's a long flight from from West Coast to East Coast. So, 2:30 game, but man, I don't know what day they get out there, but you need some time to recover from that flight. So, I'm curious, when you watched Indiana, Iowa, what did you see? You saw 2 bad teams when you saw UCLA and Northwestern. What did you see when you saw Iowa and Indiana?
Well, I think that to no surprise of anyone, that Indiana is a more explosive football team, but they're very comparable in terms of quality of play. I'm almost certain we are watching 2 of the 20 to 25 best teams in the country, and maybe Indiana's a little bit better than that. They probably are. They're probably more in the 15 range.
Yeah. And I'm just real quick, because this is one thing, and I promise we'll move on, because I'm sure most of these people want to hear us talk about teams other than Iowa and Indiana. Both teams are on bye, and we covered it last hour. But one thing we didn't bring up, if you look at the stats, Mark, the stats were very comparable. You can't take off that big play there at the end on the all-out blitz, but that was sort of, the play that Iowa, they rolled the dice on that one. But if you do take that away, and you'd have to take away the intentional safety that Mendoza took there at the end to run the clock out. Indiana, it was about a 70-yard advantage, total yardage advantage. Passing yardage, even with that last play to Mendoza, 233 to 192. So how often do we ever see Iowa competitive in that category, Mark, against good teams? Very rarely have we seen that. We just don't. I mean, 192 passing yards against a defense everybody said was just elite, Mark. That's pretty good. They didn't run the ball great. They obviously took a couple of sacks there with Hank Brown, but that was my point last hour when we were talking just about how it looked. The game, as far as flow and score, everything looked traditional, how Iowa likes to win these games, but it did look different than what we've seen over the last 4 to 5 years and how it got there.
Yeah. Now, if you would have told me that Indiana would outrush Iowa 153 to 92, I would have leaned heavily in Indiana's direction to say, okay, they won the game.
Yeah, that was, again, Iowa needed not to make excuses, but first of all, they lost Bo Stevens briefly. That hurt them up front. And they, obviously lost their quarterback, who's a rushing threat. And then they were down a couple of running backs that help them a lot in tight situations that bring a lot of bang for their buck, so to speak, and Xavier Williams and Jazz Patterson. But Indiana's hard. They one thing I'll give them credit on, they really run the ball hard. Is it Hempy that one of their
Hemby,
two?
yes,
Hemby
from Maryland.
He's hard to bring down. He's got a good center of gravity, and he's tough. They got tough people. They got strong runners, good athletes. So I will say this: Don Patterson brought it up after the game. Nobody has put the pressure on Mendoza like Iowa put on him on Saturday. And I would venture to say, I don't watch every game for Cal last year, but I would venture to say he didn't experience, looking through his stats, he did not experience anything close to what he saw. Maybe in the playoffs against Ohio State, or excuse me, against Notre Dame, maybe he got it there, or against Ohio State.
Well, wait a minute. He was playing for Cal.
No, I'm talking about last year.
Oh,
I'm saying
him, the Indiana quarterback.
No, you're right. No, I'm sorry. I'm confused. No, you're absolutely right. Tell me who they played 2 years ago or last year. Who did Mendoza play for Cal that would have put that level of pressure on him?
Well, Miami's got an excellent defensive line, but I can't recall in terms of what that game looked like. I know that they had a big lead, and then Miami came back and beat them. But I'm almost positive, and I may have that number here somewhere, that Mendoza had the most pressures of anyone in the country last year. He faced like 50 sacks / pressures.
Okay. Well, all I can tell you is based on the numbers. What were his final numbers? You got it up there, Mark?
No, on Saturday. I just put up the Oregon-Penn State game.
Okay, well, the final numbers for Mendoza against Iowa this past weekend were 13 of 23, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So not horrible, but good for 56.5% through the air. First of all, that's the lowest percentage he's had all of this year. And then you look at his numbers last year for Cal, and just go down the list here: 68%, 69, 72, 61. Looks like maybe the game that would challenge that would be that loss to Miami. It was a 1-point loss, but it was a high-scoring game, 38-39. He was 11 of 22. So very similar numbers, slightly less efficient, 285, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. But it'd be Iowa that game. There's not another game on the schedule, Mark, last year where he threw in the 50s. So it'd either be Miami. As a college quarterback, I would venture to say it's either Miami or Iowa that's made his life the hardest.
Well, listen to this, because I brought this up because I knew that there was a stat there and I didn't get it quite right, but I went to Phil Steele's rundown here. Fernando Mendoza was sacked 50 times last year. 50. He was the most sacked quarterback in college football last year.
That may be, but I'm just saying, I'm talking about the effect it has on a quarterback when you get in the backfield, you rough them up. We saw it on the all-out blitz that resulted in the Zach Lutmer interception. The numbers that I just gave you would indicate to me that nobody has affected his psyche quite like Iowa did Saturday. Not to say he was bad, but I'm just saying he was less efficient than he normally is, through the pick, which he normally doesn't. So besides Miami, I just can't see another game statistically where it appears he was rattled.
What did he do against Florida State? They only scored 9 points.
He was 22 of 36 for 303.
Yeah, but they scored 9 points.
I know, but he was 22 of 36 for 303. I mean, that's 61% through the. I mean, that's so maybe that one. Yeah, they only scored 9 points, so that would give me indicators that maybe the offense wasn't functioning real well. They only scored 15 against Pitt, but he was 27 to 37. So it just seems like he's a pretty. Well, he is. He's a very efficient quarterback. That's why you had to rough him up, which Iowa did. Nearly did enough. But how about this game? Let's transition over to Oregon Penn State. Mark, I caught the tail end of this after the post-game show. I knew it was a 14-point deficit for Penn State. They come roaring back. And what's amazing enough to me, and you've watched more Oregon football than I have this year. I went back and looked at Dante Moore's rushing numbers at his previous school, and he didn't run the ball at all. So what has been the big difference with him? Has it been just having a better offense where he's got more space to operate? He's got more freedom here. Has he developed his athleticism to some extent in Eugene? What's been the big difference? Because I look at this and I say plus 35 on the ground. It's kind of like the effect that Mark Gronowski has for Iowa. That's a huge difference to have that as opposed to I don't know what the average quarterback is, that's a pocket passer, maybe minus 20, minus 25 on average on the ground if they're, taking a couple of sacks a game.
He did not get sacked. So
okay,
that is a 35-yard true statistic. So I cannot answer that question except maybe in a few ways. And the first one's going to be contradictory because actually, if anything, you would think UCLA, less playmakers, that there would have been more on his back to do more himself versus being at Oregon with more playmakers, better talent around him, better skill position players, that they would take something off. I'm going to guess that he has developed physically, not that he's a better athlete, that he's gotten faster or anything. Maybe he has, but he's you generally don't get better as an athlete during the course of being a college quarterback.
Yep.
If anything, you get beat down.
You might be able to lose some weight or pack some pounds on that helps you in some.
I think he's packed some pounds on.
Yeah.
He's not the skinny kid that he was as a freshman at UCLA. He's gotten bigger and he's a force in the run game. That's what it is.
To give you an idea, this is what I'm talking about. Played 9 games in 2023. His net total rushing was minus 84 that whole year, Mark. This year at Oregon, through 5 games, he's plus 122. I don't want to, make this hyperbole, but that's cataclysmic, the difference there. I mean, that's incredible. As far as if you go per game average there, we could parcel that out if we wanted to. That's a huge difference per game. So, and I don't know how, you've watched more Oregon football here over the last couple of years, but Oregon's ability to have dynamic speed everywhere, basically at every position, has been essential to what they do on offense.
Well, I've watched a ton of Oregon football over the last few years, but I've watched no Oregon football until Saturday night against Penn State. And as we bring in our first caller here, the real MVP, I will say that with a quick glance across the nation, that Dante Moore proved more, and his quarterback performance was the most important one on this college football Saturday. That what he proved, that he's a legitimate quarterback, meant the most. The real MVP, what's going on?
Not much, Mark. More things change, more they stay the same was this week's version of college football. I mean, shock, Penn State loses to every good team and beats every cupcake to bad team to average team they play. I mean, who could have seen this going? It's only the 10th or 9th year in a row this has occurred. I've been thinking about this. I think Penn State's the most talented team in the country right now. With what the returning production is, I think they win all in. So with that being said, I think if Penn State loses to Ohio State, James Franklin needs to be fired. I think something has to change. It's similar to the Baltimore. It's similar to the Baltimore Ravens with John Harbaugh. They're always going to the playoffs. They're winning 15, 14 games, but in the big spots, you lose. And at a certain point, something has to change.
Is that real quick? Is that kind of like Michigan fans when they said Harbaugh needed to be fired because they could never win the big game?
I'm going to let Corey address this because I ran through this entire topic the other night and gave my opinion on the whole firing of James Franklin.
Darryl, is that the same thing as like when Michigan fans
similar,
wanted Harbaugh fired?
I would argue. He
went out real quick, but then he went out and totally flipped that and started. Now, whether they cheated or not, which we know they did, they flipped it around and won a national title and all that. So I'm just saying.
How many years do you want to give him to have the chance to turn? I think this was the year for them to at least win one of the 2 games. You don't have
crazy
to win.
About what you're saying, though. This is like the conversation we had with Ryan Day is another good example, right? It's the same thing.
I understand.
We have the same conversation with everybody, and what they do, they went out and won a national title.
So, I wasn't calling for the firing of Ryan Day.
No, but a lot of people were.
Oh, because those people are overreactionary.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I made the comment after I made Mark. You remember me saying I thought Tennessee was a dangerous first round opponent, and I was wrong about that. But I said I think if they lose to Tennessee, he might be done. And instead, they went out and won every game and were great. So that's the thin margin you're talking about with these teams that are only losing 1 or 2 games a year.
I understand, but it's who you're losing to them and how consistently it's happening. Listen, Penn State to me is the best team in the country on paper. On paper, Penn State should win it all, but they're not going to because
you don't know that. Well, you don't know that, but
Based on the current results, they're not good enough to win it all.
Well, again, you don't know that, but the reason why I bring this up is because they may go 10-2 and still make the playoff with a loss to Ohio State. In fact, there's a good chance that happens. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. And what's good, maybe it's 30%, but that's still pretty good odds to make the playoff. I have their schedule pulled up here. They play Ohio State. They get Indiana at home. They play Iowa on the road. Those are their toughest remaining games. So 10-2, I think we can all agree 10-2 is going to get you in. Penn State would be stupid to fire their. First of all, that's not going to ever happen. Okay, that's never going to happen. So they're not going to fire him midseason. I'm not implying that you're saying that they should.
Oh, no.
But I guess to Mark's point, it's irrelevant whether they lose to Ohio State. It all depends on what happens later on. If an Ohio State loss contributes to a 9-3 missed playoff season, then yeah, we can have that conversation. But if they're 10-2 with a loss to Ohio State, it all depends on what they do in the playoff. Ohio State, Penn State is not Ohio State, Michigan. That's not the bar. That's not the meter. So
no, I agree with that. The meter for Penn State is just being a elite team, just one. That's their bar.
But they've lost one game in double overtime to a team that was in the playoff last year. I mean.
Okay, but you're just looking at this
a little
year.
Bit? Well, you just said that no, you just said they're the most talented team in the country. They haven't been the most talented team in the country until this year.
That's correct. This year they are the most talented team.
So
but they're not way far back where you would expect them. They can't beat one of these teams occasionally. Like this year, I think they're the most talented. Usually they're like 5th to 7th ranked, and those teams occasionally beat a top 3 team or a top 5 team or a top 10 team. Penn State has another. Penn State to me is just Tennessee. That's what they are. They're just a tier 2 SEC program. And the reason they're 10-2 is because of the product of the conference outside of the top 5 is not that good.
That's okay. Well, that's relative. That's an opinion-based comment.
It's my opinion though.
Yeah, and
it's been proven over and over again.
Well, no, it hasn't. But here's the deal. The bottom line is it's all relative. You say that's not very good. You may say that the middle of the SEC is better than the middle of the Big Ten, and I'm guessing you're right on that. But it's all dependent on expectations. Penn State is perennially one of the 5 best teams in the conference.
Yes.
And they have been since James Franklin took over there. So if you want to take the risk of they've got plenty of prestige and history there, but just like Ohio State would have been foolish to get rid of Ryan Day when they couldn't beat Michigan year after year after year, and he's still in that same situation. They still aren't beating Michigan.
Yeah, that's correct, but they're winning titles.
They just won a national title. So is he on the hot seat?
No
way on this green earth is he on the hot seat for the foreseeable future. I would venture to say Ryan Day could lose the next 2 years to Michigan, not win another national title, and still have his job if he wants it in 3 years. Now, the seat may start getting hotter, but that's my point. If Penn State they don't have a Michigan game as a meter, but if they get to the playoff this year and even win a game or two, even if they don't win a national title, I can't imagine Penn State making a change because they're not going 11-1 and winning national titles. I just think that lesson has been learned by other teams at different levels. Whether you're talking,
I look at it like Georgia. Georgia took a risk with Mark Richt. They fired him. They got Kirby Smart, and they're probably the second best program in the sport right now outside of Ohio State. I don't think programs should be operating from fear.
I agree with that. Believe me, I've been debating people on that topic, and I was going to bring up, you can look at it different ways. You can look at it the top end of what can result from being a little bit more patient with the elite programs, a la Michigan, Ohio State, both those teams. We talked about that. And then you look at the flip side of this, more average to above average programs in the best conferences in the country. Nebraska, Wisconsin have made changes because they were unsatisfied with 8-4, 9-3, and those teams have spent years in the dumps. So I'm just saying, like you say, well, don't operate under fear. But that is evidence that's clear, especially with the new expanded Big Ten, where it's going to be difficult for anybody not named Ohio State and Michigan. It's going to be difficult year after year to be competing for a national title. That's what I would say. Mark,
I agree with. I would include Oregon in that list, but I agree with everything you said.
Penn State's a better program than Oregon. I think we can agree on that, right?
I think since entering the Big Ten, Oregon's the better program.
Well, I'm saying history, like as a whole.
Fair.
Penn State's a better football brand than Oregon, not by a lot.
To me, it's all just based on the value set that you ascribe to. Like, as a fan, I would rather want to see my team just change it up for the sake of seeing something different, doing something different, than just be continually in this run.
Oh, do you want Mark Stoops fired?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted him fired last year.
All right. Well, then you better anticipate a potential of having several losing seasons in a row, because
I know we've already had 2 or 3 of them in a row. It can't get much worse. We're going 0-8 in the SEC. We're going to lose by probably 28 points on average per SEC game. It can't get much worse than where we're currently at.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you're having a bad year.
Yeah, our quarterback is a guy who literally doesn't know how to throw the football.
Didn't they get that guy from North Carolina State?
I have no idea. Our quarterback is a freshman in Cutter Boley. That's our quarterback.
Am I thinking of last year, Mark?
Oh, that's been a few years ago that they got the NC State quarterback. I can't remember his name. What was his name, Darrell? Finley. Yeah.
Right? Was that literally a few years ago?
Oh, yeah. That's been 2020.
What?
20.
Am I living in a time machine? I don't know what to tell you other than I just disagree that it's going to happen. We can debate about how programs should be run. Darrell, I don't see there being any way if Penn State makes now, here's what may happen. James Franklin may decide, I don't need this crap, because that guy seems to me like he's got a big ego. He's always on these coaching search lists every single year. He and PJ Fleck always at the forefront, right? They always have their name out there. I don't think that's a coincidence. So he may just decide, like Jim Harbaugh did when the scandal began there at Michigan, that I don't need this. I'll go take this job here. I'll coach in the NFL. There's lots of programs that would hire him in a heartbeat. Absolutely. And your Kentucky Wildcats would be one of them. They would hire him in a heartbeat. And he's also the polar opposite of Mark Stoops. So don't be surprised if you hope for a James Franklin to be fired. If Mark Stoops is done after this year, don't be surprised if James Franklin is your next head coach.
When I'm saying James Franklin should be fired, I'm not castigating him as a horrible coach. What I'm saying is he's not good enough to elevate Penn State to where they want to go. And that's win a big game, win it all, that type of expectations. He's probably one of the 10 best coaches in the country. But I think Penn State is such a good program that they can upgrade their coach and have one of the 5 best coaches in the country. And that might make the difference.
I will add one more thing on this, just to kind of wrap this thing in a bow. I've seen multiple interactive posts on social media this week about the stretch of games Penn State has coming up. That stretch, Iowa in Kinnick, Ohio State in the Shoe, and then a top 10 Indiana team at home. That's going to make or break their season, right? Because as much as I said they could end up in 10-2, those are all losable games for them. So you could foresee a scenario where they're 8-4. And then I agree with you. If they're 8-4, all bets are off. Even though they've had tremendous success with the amount of talent there, the expectation and the bar is a lot higher. And I don't think that's unfair. You reap what you sow, right? If you buy 6,000 acres of land and make a couple $10,000 on a harvest, then you probably sat on your butt for way too long, and somebody else should come in and till it up and restart it next year. So I don't know if that's going to happen with Penn State. I just know it's a really intriguing 3-game stretch. But I just think maybe we're jumping to. I know you're not talking about just one game. But, again, talking about double overtime.
Oh, the game did go to double overtime, but Oregon dominated for a vast majority of the game.
Penn State dominated the fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely dominated the fourth quarter. Outside of that, Oregon was clearly the better team entering that quarter, though, man. I mean, Penn State was a miracle they even took it to overtime, to be honest with you.
I would say Penn State's defense was pretty impressive to hold Oregon down like it did. That's an Oregon team that was scoring 50 on everybody. Now, they hadn't played a tough schedule. Oregon hadn't, relative to the Big Ten. but they were scoring 50 some. That's just like what Iowa did against Indiana, Mark. Like everybody talked about Indiana's offense. I think Iowa's defense is pretty darn good based on what they did Saturday. So it's still early, Darrell, but the only teams firing their coach at this point in the year are the cellar dwellers of Oklahoma State, Oregon State, Virginia Tech, who just fired their coach over the weekend. Arkansas. So who are candidates for the Arkansas job?
Probably just your usual list of casting characters.
PJ? Brett Bielema? What if they brought Brett back? Hey, how about Bobby Petrino? How about
Arkansas has openly stated that he's available to be the next coach.
Why on earth? Why are they doing that?
He is the interim.
Yeah. He is?
Yes.
See, I'm not connected to it.
He's the offensive coordinator.
Oh, see, I didn't even realize that.
I think Arkansas hiring Bobby Petrino, I think they're going to I'm Team Chaos, so I want that to happen.
What if he came to his opening introductory press conference with the neck brace on? Could you imagine? Hey, John Calipari left Kentucky to coach in Fayetteville, so that might be a pretty darn attractive. I mean, obviously, it's an attractive job. It's an SEC job and a great part of the country as far as landscape and cost of living and all that. It's a great college town, Darrell. So that's going to be an interesting destination for some coaches potentially.
Oh yeah, and the reason I'm not talking. Going back to the James Franklin point, I'm not talking about firing him right now. That's asinine. I think you should let the season play out. And when they lose to Ohio State because they're not beating a good team this year, go 10-2, borderline playoff team. They might miss it at 10-2. They might make it.
They're not missing it at 10-2.
I don't know. I don't know about that. With how good the SEC's been this year and how the metrics are, there's some 9-3 teams that I think can get in over Penn State.
But if they would have lost to Oregon by 3 touchdowns, then we may have a conversation. But they just took them to double overtime. So if they play Ohio State close, you may be looking at number 1 and 2 in the country that they may eventually lose to.
That's right. That is true. But I'm just saying.
They're not going to leave them out of the playoffs if they lose to number 1 and number 2 by a field goal.
When it comes to the committee, I am not ruling anything out. That's all I'm saying.
It's just like the conversation we had, not quite to that extreme. The conversation we had last hour, Darrell, about Iowa. Like, nobody thinks they're going to win the rest of their games. But if they did, they'd be 10-2 with a loss to a now top 10 Indiana team and a top 15 Iowa State team. They're not missing out on the playoffs because that would mean they would have beaten Oregon, Penn State, at USC. Penn State would have, if they go 10-2, they're going to have wins at Iowa, home against Indiana, and close losses and against really good teams. So yeah,
I wouldn't hold that Iowa State cap too long because they're underdogs this week to Cincinnati.
Well, that game must be in Cincinnati.
It is. Okay. I still can't believe they're underdogs, though. I mean, Cincinnati's not that good of a football team.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. And I think so. I think that game's going to be on our 12.
I was just going to say, I'll serve that up for you.
Please do, Mark. We don't get enough Big 12 games on that 12 pack.
Yeah, well, they're kind of at the bottom of the list, the priority list.
What is this comment on the screen, Mark?
What are we looking at? Well, I think there was you leaving Jim Harbaugh out there as an example of breaking through. I know many made a comment about Tom Osborne took him 21 years to win a national championship, and then Christopher Foote chimes in with took BYU 60 years to claim a share of the national championship.
To me, it's different in this age of college football because you can get who you want right away. Like, you don't have to build up, cycle over. If you had one bad class back in the old days before the portal and stuff, it kind of tanked you. Now you can just get everybody in one class. So I think it's changed to where these coaches are on a 1 to 2 year window instead of a 3 to 4 year window. So
absolutely. We were kicking around the last hour about what Curt Cignetti's done at Indiana and if that can be done elsewhere in the Big Ten. And, you know, this Big Ten media expansion of finances and revenue coincided with the NIL era. So there are no excuses anymore. Yeah, there's still revenue differences between Ohio State and Rutgers, but still, Rutgers is earning more media money than everybody in the country outside the Big Ten. So you no longer have excuses to say, well, we have inferior resources, we can't win.
Oh, absolutely. The problem for my school is we're choosing to use those resources in basketball instead. So we're going to be a powerhouse in basketball for your use. Every school, I think, for Kentucky is using they're putting more into football than basketball. Kentucky's doing 280% in basketball to football. So that's why we're going to stink for years and years to come.
What are you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at the chat.
I'm laughing at Minnie telling us that we're not listening to her, but
we're
I
not.
probably post as many of her comments as anybody else.
Did you make her mad, Mark? Let's see here.
She says we don't listen to her unless we're trashing Nebraska.
Yeah, you put a bunch of her comments up on the screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska plays probably the game of the week in the Big Ten.
I gave her a show to come on here and spout off for an hour. All right, Darrell, anything else?
No, anyway, it's good talking to you, gentlemen. I'll see you in about a month or two when Penn State loses to Ohio State 17-14. And everybody will say, I can't believe it. They're so close. They're so close. They're almost right there. The 1999, the 90s Buffalo college football team, Penn State.
Didn't they win a playoff game last year, Darrell?
They won 2, and I don't care because they played 2 cupcakes.
They played
in SMU and Boise State.
Okay, well, they won 2 playoff games last year.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about Don't give me that garbage about cupcakes.
Boise State's not a good team. Iowa could beat Boise State. Indiana, there's like 25, 30 teams that could have beaten Boise State last year. And SMU, not good.
But see, that's your opinion when you say there's 25 to 30 teams that could beat Boise State. Yeah, there's 25, maybe there's 25 to 30 that could, but we don't know that.
We don't know it, but a team that goes on and barely beats Wyoming, barely beats North Texas.
It's hard to be dominant every week, Darrell. It's hard to be dominant every week. I'm going to stick up for G5 programs when given the chance because it's hard to be dominant every single week. If a team goes 11-1, that's impressive. I don't care who you play. I'm not saying that means you're one of the 12 best teams, but to act like Penn State beating SMU and Boise State isn't impressive, I don't agree with that. Still the big stage. Still the big stage against teams that hadn't lost much.
Fair enough. I mean, listen, if you want to impress me, then I would go out and schedule those teams next year, and I'll be like, wow, you all did such a good job.
Unfortunately, Iowa's scheduling the likes of UMass, Albany, and Fordham. So it may be a while before they schedule Boise State.
Oh, you all went on the Indiana plan. That's nice to hear.
Say that again?
You went on the Indiana plan of non-conference schedule.
Well, at least they play Iowa State.
That's true.
Most of the Big Ten team. Well, no, we're not. Please. Yeah. Penn State didn't play anybody. You want to talk about
that's true. Literal worst schedule in the country before this game.
Yeah.
Think about this. Now, when Darrell mentioned that he's expecting Penn State to go play tough in Columbus, but walk away a certain loser, it brought to mind the comment that James Franklin made. Now, granted, this has now been 7 years ago. Now, this is where you have to be careful of your words because they can come back to bite you. So 7 years ago, they had just lost again to Ohio State in the waning seconds of the game, 2 consecutive years. They had a huge lead in the fourth quarter, 18 points one year, 12 points in the final 4 minutes the other year. They blow it. And he's sitting there going, we're great. We're a great program. They're elite. He's pointing across like through the wall to their clubhouse. They're elite and basically stating that we're going to be elite soon. We're hunting them down. We're right there. We're going to be elite. He made that comment 7 years ago, and they still have lost 11 years in a row to Ohio State.
Have they even beat a top 5 team in that time?
No, they lost to Iowa when Iowa was in the top 5. That would have counted. Remember, Iowa was in the top 5 in 2021. By the way, before we let you go, Darrell, can you give us your thoughts on Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl?
Lord. Don't get my thoughts on it.
You're not a big Bad Bunny fan.
No, sometimes in life you have to go back to your faith for explanations.
Isn't Bad Bunny the one that did the song? Whoa, Bad Bunny,
Yeah,
whoa, Bad Bunny.
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that would make sense. I don't know, but that would make the most logical sense. I mean, they should have just brought Taylor Swift to do the Super Bowl. Honestly, if this
I'm
was
pretty
the
sure if Taylor Swift wanted to do the Super Bowl, she'd be doing the Super Bowl.
I would have taken that over this.
I've determined, I used to be naive enough to think that it's the greatest privilege to perform at the Super Bowl, but I think there's a lot of acts that have no interest in doing that. Because Bad Bunny, I know Bad Bunny's really popular internationally, but there are a lot of people who are bigger names like Taylor Swift that have not performed at the Super Bowl. So,
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get going. Have a good rest of your show.
Thanks to Real. Minnie, thanks for being here. And Minnie is alerting us to the fact, apparently, that it is one Jackson Johnson's birthday.
Jackson's 28?
Jackson is 28.
Wow. I didn't realize Jackson was 28.
Can you sing, Corey?
No, I'm not. I
You're
just
not
sang
gonna sing?
I just sang Bad Bunny.
You're not going to serenade Jackson?
No, I'm not a serenader. I've not been asked to perform at the Super Bowl.
I'm going to leave this up to Jackson. Jackson, if you want me to serenade you, happy birthday on the 10 p.m. show late tonight, I will do that for you. But if I'm sparing your ears, then I will do whatever you want me to do. So either way. So you can blame Jackson, everyone, if I sing him happy birthday tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. But otherwise, I will spare Jackson. But if he wants me to, I will. Maybe we'll kick in with a little birthday bonus. I don't know.
Maybe he'll give you a super chat for that, Mark.
Yes, and YouTube wins. They're the winner.
YouTube wins.
All right, everyone. I know Corey needs to take off, and I actually have a Florida State show at 7 p.m. Eastern. So 10 minutes from now, join me on the Florida State channel for the big Florida State show. They've got Miami coming up on Saturday. Right, Corey? Great weekend of Big Ten football. One last time, it's you tell me which game you would watch if you can only watch one game. Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Purdue, Penn State, UCLA, Washington, Maryland, Louisiana, Monroe, Northwestern. I know where you're going there. Michigan State, Nebraska, Minnesota, Ohio State.
Yeah, it'd be Michigan State, Nebraska. But I think Washington, Maryland's intriguing. Maryland, this is what Maryland does. Typically, they don't schedule great in September. And under what's his face, they typically get off to 4-0 starts. They do this a lot. They may have the most 4-0 starts of anybody outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State in this conference. It's crazy how many times they start out 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, but then they usually wilter. So this is the first chance for them to wilt. And I think Washington's probably better, but that's a tough travel across 3 time zones. So that's interesting. But I think Nebraska, Michigan State has a chance to be really interesting and may have the biggest playoff implications of any game, legitimate implications of any game. Obviously, if Minnesota were to upset Ohio State, that has huge repercussions, but I don't anticipate that happening. But Michigan State maybe knocking off Nebraska is a little bit more likely.
My picks, Corey picks on Patreon. Catch Corey each and every day at from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and your special on Friday.
Yeah, special on Friday. Real quick, let's get Lemansky Super Chat in here. He says, we should all have the MVP SEC magical fairy dust and sprinklist in behalf of our favorite conference. How do you say that? Conference-census?
Yeah, I guess.
Play games out. So we do appreciate that Super Chat, Lemansky.
Well, the SEC's been the best conference. It's not even close. So Lemansky, if you want to call me about that, I can explain that to you.
Yeah, and I would debate you on last year, Mark, but we've had that. Let's talk about this year, and I think the SEC is better this year anyways. But Yeah, myself and Tyler Kluver, Big Ten fan or Iowa fan, doesn't matter. Join us down at Big Grove Brewery in Des Moines Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time on the patio. Get something cool to drink and get something great to eat. Enjoy great company outside of Big Grove Brewery in Des Moines, 6 p.m. Friday.
See you in 10 minutes for the Florida State Show over on the Seminoles at the Voice of College Football channel.